What's up, world, and welcome back to the Global Frequency. I am your host, Nefarious.
And I'm Frequency Girl.
Pigtail Girl tonight.
Pigtail Girl. I am Pigtail Girl tonight.
And we are joined by Larry Higgins, writer and creator of the comic Niobe, which is now in previews and being published by Antarctic Press. But he's here to tell us all about his current comic book crowdfunding campaign, Savage Syn, available over on Kickstarter.
What's going on,
Larry? Glad to have you with us.
I'm glad to be alive. You know what I'm saying? It was a rough morning, man. Let me tell you. You know.
Did you have like a Bloody Mary with like a raw egg in it for the?
No, I just drank a lot of cheap beer. You know what I mean?
Ah, okay.
And
Molson?
God, not even. It was probably Moosehead. It's a brand here.
I had a Moosehead exactly one time in my life. We had done a big canoe trip on the Harry Canal River in Canada. It kind of empties out into the James Bay, which is the southern part of the Hudson Bay, which is the Arctic Ocean. Mm-hmm. And you get to this spot once you cross the bay. So you're crossing part of the Arctic Ocean, and there's this tiny little trader town called Moosonee. And it's a rite of passage, apparently, to go and do this. So once we got there, even though we were like 18, 19, all of the trip leaders bought all of us a beer. And we all had a Moosehead.
And you all had
one time I had this shitty ass Canadian beer.
Right? Yeah, no, I visited the Porcelain God this morning. You know, that was a good trip.
All right.
Yeah, and then after that, I was fine, though. You know, once you lit it out, about a half hour later, I was on the road to recovery. And I laid in bed until about 6 o'clock my time, which was 2 hours before joining you. So I got out of the shower maybe about a half hour ago. You know what I mean?
All right. Hey, I mean, nice and toasty warm, and skin's all glowing from that shower. So this has been a long time coming, my dude. We had you on before with Scott Wilson and Ichthus back when we were doing the Flop launch party, but we haven't had you on as a proper guest doing your own show before tonight, at least not as in my memory. So it's a little historic. That said,
your memory's not that great. So.
It really isn't.
Mo Biggs in the chat.
Mo Biggs in the chat.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to say hi to everybody? Let's say hi to everybody.
We have
Rain Radio. We got Rain Radio. New Orleans, everybody. Check it out. It is through Marcosia Publishing right now. You can find it in Barnes and Nobles, and I think you can find it at Walmart and some obscure online international retailers. So go and look for that. But we also got Dave Brink, Genuine Comics. We've got Mo Biggs.
It's officially streamed.
We do have Collision Bomb as well. What is up, Collision Bomb? Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got Ichthus. What is up, Total Excellence? Glad to have you with us as well. Then we got you, brother, you in the chat saying, hail. Phil says rite of passage. Yeah, it's we're not going to talk that much about that. It was a whitewater Indian summer. What was that movie with Kevin Bacon where like the trip leader goes crazy and tries to kill everybody? I don't remember either. What's up, Philman X? All right.
Hey, man.
So let's dive into the man behind the myth known as LP. Where are you from and where did you grow up?
Who's your daddy and what does he do?
It's not a tuna.
Yeah, I'm from born in Toronto, Canada, but moved to the East Coast when I was a toddler. So lived in New Brunswick ever since, which is essentially right above the state of Maine. So, we're right on the Atlantic Ocean, if you will. Yeah, that's where I'm from. What do I do? I work at a call center. That's my sort of day job. I do back office work for them. One of the few people that actually work in the building now because everyone's remote. But, and we play a lot of video games and watch movies there.
I mean, hey, it sounds like a pretty good gig to me, right?
Well, you know, it's not bad. When it's dead, we get the goof off, and when it's busy, we go to work. You know.
Yeah, you do your thing. So, according to my sources, you got interested in comics around age 12, starting with the usual fare for Marvel, specifically Spider-Man and X-Men.
I would say it's probably even earlier than that, to be honest with you.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Even earlier. 10 years old.
Oh, probably even before that. Like if we're to count, like, say, things like Archie or Richie Rich and that sort of stuff, right? So I would have
that's fair.
As a kid, you know what I mean? And then that sort of graduated into, you know, the superhero comics and stuff. I remember like going to this used bookstore and they would sell them for like $0.25 a piece. It didn't matter the condition at that time because I wasn't thinking of collecting. I was a kid, right? You just buy a handful of comics and you go home and you read them, you know. But I remember, you know, around 12-ish, so I would say 1985, 86, we had this like tiny little hole-in-the-wall comic book shop that I saw for the very first time and was like blown away. You know, oh my God, you know, you keep these in boxes and bags and boards, and you got the cool ones up on the wall, and here's all this stuff I never seen. And I became a comic collector from that day on, you know.
And that was around 1986 or so when you started getting into the collecting, and like, more serious.
Buy my first long box, getting the supplies, you know.
Popped your comics cherry. But 4 short years later, we got the 90s comics boom, right? So what was that like for you? Your little 12-year-old brain is first, you know, now really getting into Marvel comics, and then suddenly McFarlane's drawing Spider-Man.
Well,
and you got Jim Lee on X-Men. And then you got Image Comics coming in with like Cyberforce and Velocity and all of these sexy bad girls coming out of nowhere, and J. Scott Campbell, and things were never the same.
Yeah, I get you. I feel it. What you're talking about, though, is an 8-year span, right? Right. So from 86 to 90, you know, it's still pretty tame in comics. You know, the switch was slowly starting to happen. By the time 1990 rolled around, I was 16 years old, you know, 12 to 16. So mentally, you know, a little bit different, you know, as opposed to a kid who is still loving Transformers into being a teenager chasing after the girls, you know what I mean? But it was exciting because you did have these cats who were sort of like larger than life, you know, and by that I mean the Image founders, you know. Right. So your Robs, your Todds, you know, your Jim Valentinos, the whole list of them, right? But it was sort of Rob and Todd and Jim that stuck out to me, and Mark too. Any guy that was doing X-Men or Spider-Man, right? You know what I mean? Especially Todd's Spider-Man, you know, when the Amazing Spider-Man, you know, 298 came out, and that was McFarlane's first Spider-Man work on Amazing. That was a game changer, you know, the webbing, the eyes, you know, the extra detail he would throw in, you know what I mean? Breaking all the rules and making Marvel mad, and you know, Liefeld doing sort of the same sort of stuff, you know, with bad feet, right? It was all good. You know?
Giant upper bodies and like
we had the guns, weapons, and, we had the pouches, we had the hot ladies with extra long legs that could, you know, bend time and space. And so, you know, at that point, comics became cool, you know, in a sense, right? Because as a kid, you know, when you're going from 12 into a teenager, you're sort of made fun of if you still like toys and comics and stuff back then, you know what I mean? And so, you know, it's like playing Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. Now it's mainstream, but back then, you know, you get punched in the gut for that. You know,
it's true. It was a vicious time. But see, you got interested in girls and stuff, but you never really lost your interest in comics either. Back, you know, for me, it was one or the other, really. Like you started chasing tail and stopped being interested in comics, or you stayed interested in comics and you kind of ignored women. You somehow found a way to like have the best of both.
Well, I'll tell you, I did get out of comics for a while.
See, everybody has that one period, right?
Right. You know, I mean, but back to the 90s. You know, that was a great time. I had all that stuff too. I wish I had my collection from then, because when I did get out of comics, I sold all that stuff, and for like pennies on the dollar, you know. But yeah, I remember when Image came out, after the boys had their success on X-Force and X-Men and Jim Lee, Chris Claremont's run and all that sort of stuff. And then they all went over the Image, and the big question was, this looks flashy, but is it going to be any good? You know what I mean?
Right.
And even then, I was skeptical on Image, and sort of rightfully so. Some of the books were good, some of them not so good. I mean, try reading Youngblood 1. That's a chore. You know what I mean? Like,
I got one right here. You know me, and like I love robots and exosuits and
Sure.
stuff. Do you remember Black Ops?
I don't think I've ever seen that.
This book is ridiculous. It has a really hot chick on the cover in like a skin suit with like a plasma blaster and a robot arm and like a jetpack, and the unit is called Hard A.S.S because like we had to
Sure.
be edgy. It's the hard ass, and it's stuff like this that I loved about Image. And then when you're reading it, subtle little details start to jump out, and you're like, "Ooh, that face isn't quite right," or "Oh, that leg isn't really where it should be." This kind of like starts looking bad, and then you get into the writing, and you start realizing that the '90s nostalgia and everything, that's kind of the heyday, the beer goggles, if you will, the Voltron era. If you go back and watch Voltron now, it's fucking terrible. The
Right.
writing is just awful. So when I think about
What the heck?
90s comics, I remember them fondly, and I try not to actually remember them. There are some that still hold up, early Spawn, some Cyberforce, Wildcats,
Yeah.
but for the most part, the 90s style, even itself, isn't really what we want it to be. But there are comics like this these days which encapsulate the 90s style, that capture the aesthetic.
Yeah,
This
there's certain ones you
gorgeous
can't hold
maxi
up.
cover.
That's
I put those to
different.
the side, right? There are comics like this that capture the 90s vibe and the look, but are also still good comics. So how did you kind of take the 90s and transform it, modernize it, and make it something where, yeah, she can have curves, but her proportions are sensible? Yeah, we can have like, ridiculous hot babes, but the writing doesn't suck. How did you do that?
Sure luck, I guess. I mean, I appreciate the kind words, if that's true. I mean, I don't even know if my writing is good or bad. I just sort of do what I want to do, and if other people dig it, then cool. You know what I mean? Go back and watch Voltron. The writing is terrible. I almost feel bad for the post nut clarity weebs will be feeling in 20 years.
So he's saying that like anime fans are gonna, in 20 years, when they're like 50 and 60 years old, look back on themselves and go, "Oh, how cringe was I?"
Right.
I was gonna say Chainsaw Man was so bad, but I can't bring myself to say that even in front of Mo Biggs. I am in the chat, Mo. Feel free to time me out.
I never read any manga ever.
Oh, that's okay. That's good for you, man. Stay away from that stuff.
I definitely did not buy any manga.
Apparently, it will infest your comic book collection and just start taking it over and consuming it.
We have summoned bureaus.
Talk about anime, and he just appears.
Boom.
Of course.
Go back and to what you were asking about, the 90s aesthetic and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that goes along with the sort of the walk through history, right? So after the Image sort of team books came out, and people realized that this wasn't quite what they were hoping for. This doesn't have the vibe of the X-Men, even though they tried, several times with Cyberforce, Wildcats, Youngblood, whatnot. These various studios within Image Comics started, tapping into the sex appeal a lot more. That the sex appeal that you would have gotten from Jim Lee's 90s X-Men, like the hot Psylocke, Jean Grey's. And so next thing you know, we're seeing Witchblade. We're seeing Darkchild from Randy Queen. We're seeing Evangeline, Rob Liefeld, and John Stinsman. We're seeing Glory and Lady Pendragon. Brian Pulido was out there pounding, Lady Death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was all out there, and I was gobbling that stuff up, man. I was eating that stuff alive. And some of the stories, again, just like the Image team books, some were okay, some of them not. But man, were they not a fun ride anyway? And so I took that idea, like I want to do my own sort of 90s bad girl stuff, but sort of mix it in with my love for Chris Claremont's X-Men, right?
Yeah, because that's what you started on. You cut your teeth on that early X-Men stuff. That Claremont X-Men, man, that was a good shit. You know what I
And I
mean?
try to draw inspiration from that stuff. I mean, if you read Niobe, there's a lot of X-Men influence all over the place in there. You know what I mean? I got my own version of mutants. They're called genoms, which stands for genetic
Genons,
anomalies, right? And so all the influences are easily spotted. So you take Bad Girls, you mix it in with the X-Men, and that's kind of what Niobe sort of became. But
Right.
old Niobe versus new Niobe is also sort of two separate things, right? And by
Right.
old Niobe, I mean like the black and white stuff. The stuff you were asking me about, I think was off air. Issues 1 to 3. There's actually issues 1 to 4, and then there's a one shot called Avani, which was like a villain story. And so all those were black and white, and all those were essentially local here. You know what I mean? We did a Kickstarter, but it was more locals that were buying it and a few people outside of the bubble. When we switched artists and went to color, this is what I almost consider to be like Gen 2 Niobe. You know what I mean? We sort of did a soft reboot. Basically, that stuff that happened before doesn't really count. Here's, now that we know how to mold the clay and make our sculpture, now we're ready to go. The learning process is over. I consider like those first few issues in Niobe sort of just going through the trenches and just learning how the hell to even make a comic book. I lettered 2 of those books myself, and they were awful. You know what I mean? Like awful lettering, but I didn't know any better at the time. So that's why you don't see those around, because if I was ever to re-release those, I probably have 2 and 3 re-lettered, because those are the ones I lettered. We would, I would even debate putting them in color, because I think color would add a lot to them. I know when we switched to color, we doubled what we did on the previous Kickstarter.
People love color, man. Good color, good use of color. It's just, there's nothing like it, bro. Like,
well, you have a character like Niobe. I think she needs to be in color.
She needs
I
it.
agree.
Yeah, exactly.
She's very flashy. Lots of hot pinks and purples and that sort of stuff. It's kind of hard to pull off in a black and white, medium. So yeah, I mean, once we went to color, it sort of changed the game for us. And every Kickstarter we did after that just got better. We did $7,000 Canadian on Birthright 1. Birthright 2, we did 16,000. You know what I mean?
Nice.
We did Origins, that did 24,000. We did Outbreak, that did 30,000 Canadian. That's probably $1.56 US, but Canadian money.
I was trying to do the math on it earlier. What I wanted to do is I wanted to like hit all of your Kickstarter campaigns and do like a combined total and your Indiegogo campaigns. But I didn't have enough time to add all of the Kickstarter campaigns to. You've done 10 successful Kickstarter campaigns and 4 fully funded Indiegogo campaigns. And on Indiegogo alone, and we all know that like Indiegogo is you're gonna see lower totals because Bad Girls kill on Kickstarter. On just Indiegogo, you're pulling in $11,000. That's kind of impressive over just the 4 campaigns as your secondary crowdfunding source, because you run these big campaigns on Kickstarter. So we're going to get into the crowdfunding thing in just a few minutes, but I got to say, you and I, we have more than one thing in common, right? We both love making comics, and we're both terrible at drawing.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, I don't know if you are, but I know I am.
Yeah, well, I'm probably as bad, if not worse. I use squares. I use a lot of squares.
I don't know. He drew me pretty well.
Yeah, he did. He drew a little tongue, right? A little happy pigtail girl
good
tongue.
Likeness.
Right?
That's my Picasso.
But one of the ways you developed, one of the ways I developed my skill as a storyteller was to run tabletop games for my friends. And I know, so I suffer from forever DM syndrome, right? Like I'm always the DM. I very rarely get to play, but I've got experience with like dozens of systems. You ran a 2nd edition D&D campaign with one continuous storyline for over 15 years.
I don't know where the 15 years comes from. It was probably like 3 years. And then every now and then
it's Canadian. It's
Canadian
15 Canadian.
But every now and then, we would go back and revisit it. If I can get the guys together, and we would bring out the old characters for a romp. You know what I mean? But I would say 3 years straight, and then after that was sort of intermediate. Like here and there. They want to know, is this the Tim Pool show? Why, yes. The world is coming to an end, my folks.
Oh man, there he
is on the horizon.
Oh look, I'm on with Tim Pool.
I am Jim Tool.
Jim Pool.
Jim Tool.
Jim Tool, even better. That's such a good likeness. You got to get the beanie off though and show.
It was a little scary how quickly you did that.
Right,
that's because I already had them loaded up. Every now and then in the offers, I do like my Tim Pool impressions and shit, you know. And I call him Jim Tool. We were actually going to put him in the comic at one point. Jim Tool in the comic, you know.
I'm ready for 3 hours of grifting.
Yeah, right.
Show us your hairline, Tim.
Hey,
Pim Tool.
Yeah, I've played Magic with the guy. You know, it's he's an interesting cat.
Is he any good?
I have a couple Tim Pool stories.
He's very competitive.
I can tell you in the back room. I don't want to say them on
competitive.
Air. Yeah, very competitive. But we will.
I played Magic for eons, man. Fuck.
Yeah, dude, me too. Like we're game rats, you and me. Like we go back. We did the nerdy shit. We played tabletop. I'm actually going to get into this thing.
Needs to head out before the Civil War erupts. We wish you.
I tell you, my friends, it's already too late.
we're heading in that direction. The culture war is going to spill over into violence.
My time on Occupy Wall Street has told me.
If you're not getting fired for not taking the vaccine, you're not doing your part.
That's right.
So, yeah, so I was a pretty big FLGS and LCS nerd growing up. And there was a lot of gaming stores and comic shops in New York City where I grew up. But there was this one particular spot called Neutral Ground where my friends and I would go. No matter when you went, you'd always run into somebody you knew. It was like a community built around a culture. You know something about that, right? Tell me about your local New Brunswick LCS, the Comic Hunter.
Great place. Huge place. It's probably the biggest comic shop east of Montreal. So that's, you know, it became a franchise. They got like 2 other locations now open, and one in Prince Edward Island and one in a city called Fredericton, New Brunswick. So they're growing, you know, unlike a lot of comic shops that sort of shut down or lose business. They just seem to gain traction, you know, but they're not just strictly a comic shop. I mean, they sell Warhammer minis, they sell Magic cards, they sell statues and Funko Pops and all sorts of merch, right? But I'll tell you, their comics shelves are huge. And they get a lot of indie stuff, you know, and a lot of small publisher stuff, and they really support local people, you know, and they're good guys just to sort of even go in and just shoot the breeze. I'll go into that store and I'm there for an hour, you know what I mean? Half of it is just hanging at the front desk and shooting the breeze, you know.
Right. You also helped them out, like, because of your love of the medium. You went through all of their back issues and rebagged and boarded everything.
Oh, yeah.
And like from what I understand, you saved a lot of the stuff that was like really in need of attention in that store. And of course, like going through all of that, you really familiarized yourself with the history of comics. One of the things that I didn't have, being a kid that grew up in the later end of the 80s and early 90s, getting into Image and everything, was a real big appreciation for like Silver and Golden Age comics. Right. There was no one around to be like, hey, let me show you this classic Flash comic. Sure. Jake Gordon's running around with a big hat on his head. You know, like that. I never knew about that stuff until much, much later in life. But it must have been like a real special experience to be taking care of almost like the archives at a comic book store, going through and restoring them the way, you know, a highly paid, skilled librarian would be, where you're handling all these ancient tomes of yellowed paper.
I don't know if it was that cool. What it was I was working for Store Credit, and I would go in whenever I felt like it, right? And if I want to go in for a couple hours and work, I could. If I want to spend the day there, I could. You know what I mean? Because we had so much back stock in this, what I would call the vault, you know? And it was just like rows and rows and rows of long boxes that really they had no idea what was inside of them. They were collections that were bought or picked up and never really sort of inventoried and sorted through. So I would go ahead and just like, haul out these boxes and, start putting piles all over the tables and see what was in there and started, putting them in alphabetical order, and anything that I knew was a hot item, or a key issue, first appearances, stuff like that. Then I would put those aside, if anything that was worth $25 or over and I knew what it was, you know what I mean? So that the manager could take a look and see if he wanted those out right away, or, and so I got paid, in store credit to do that. I also got paid to run Dungeons and Dragons and other various RPGs on the Wednesday nights that we did gaming there. And that was like $20 store credit every time I did a game. You know what I mean?
Nice, because it brought people into the store.
Right. And they would buy the game books and the dice.
Right.
And,
they'd buy snacks from the store, which are always marked up.
Snacks are always essential.
And it wasn't just me doing it. They had a few guys that got that deal. It was pretty nice,
That's sick. I mean, I was in a similar situation. We had a tiny little comic book shop, and I would alphabetize the magic cards.
Yeah, there's guys that do that there now, like nonstop all day.
It's awful. It is so awful. But you really do get an education on the cards. And I mean, like, it was every set up to Ice Age at that point. And I would pull out the rares and stuff like that, kind of like what you did with the comic books, and would alphabetize all this stuff. And he'd let me take home like 2 issues of something, like a Spawn and a Wildcats, and that was my afternoon for like 2 afternoons of the week. I'd get like a comic per day of work, and it was hours upon hours I'd spend at the comic shop, like 3 hours working, and he'd pay me $1.95.
I really more than that, but the cool thing about the sorting of comics was I also got first pick of the cool shit that I found if I wanted it.
That's
myself.
That's dope.
That's very
so
cool.
that's also how you kind of got into the speculators game, or at least understood it, because of the way pricing would work. For me, like, my exposure to price guides was Wizard. That was it. There was really no practical understanding of the buying and selling and trading of value comics, which they never go down, right? They're a stable investment, at least amongst the comic book community. They don't really, they only really increase in value when something gets optioned and turned into a movie, or they get a new series or something like that. So for me, it was never something that I thought of when I was growing up, where there could be a store of value in something that I was doing as a hobby.
Well, early on, I realized there was value. The value didn't jump like the way it jumps now. Now, like, it could be the most minor character in the Spider-Verse, and it's being speculated on eBay. You know what I mean? But back then, like, even when I was like 14, I remember buying like X-Men 129. It's like the first appearance of Kitty Pryde. And at that time, I probably picked it up for $10. But still, the $10 was $10, and it wasn't like, $1.25. You know what I mean? It had gone up. And there were other comics that go up, so I always knew back then first appearances were worth money. But now it's every sort of minor appearance they're trying to speculate on, and it's a little crazy. I got into sort of knowing that stuff not from really doing work there, but from YouTube, right? Because before I would say 2017, before the culture war really sort of ramped up, I was with a whole different cat of YouTubers that were doing YouTube videos, but it was more talking about Marvel and DC, talking about, what's hot, what's not, talking about grading comics through CGC, CBS, PGX, that sort of stuff. And so I got my education through those guys, guys like The Great Legend Show, or Comics with Bueller, or Alex the Comic Hoarder, Gene Paul Ace Peter, who's like a historian of Marvel, you know what I mean? And I would hang out with these cats on air and, behind the scenes. And, they were buying and trading like there was no tomorrow,
Yeah. And I mean, that's a great way to get into like an early understanding of investments in commodities, right? Like later on, I'm sure that served a lot of people who were starting to understand the fundamentals of that with comic books when they were teenagers, right?
Yeah, and then I was going to say there's also then the Bible at that time. Slowly phasing out, but it was the Overstreet price guide.
Overstreet, yeah, they were mentioning that.
Yeah. Yang said
Overstreet, yeah, everyone's saying
Overstreet had
you
a
would
nice price
buy
tag
by
back in the
Overstreet
day.
and sell by Wizard because Wizard would inflate the prices and stuff.
Yeah, and
If you
even
were
in the
cheap.
back of some Marvel comics, you would have like these mile high ads, and they would show you the back issues that they had and what prices they were selling them at, and that sort of stuff. So you got an idea through that as well, you know. Or you just go to your local comic shop and you peruse the bins and see what they're going for. You know what I mean?
Right. But you started storytelling through gaming in a way, right? Like, so, you know, we know you were telling this second edition D&D story for a long time, and
Yeah.
you seem to be paid by the comic shop to run D&D nights, and all of this is, you know, early on in your life. That it makes sense because the first evidence I could find of Niobe in print was back in 2015 with Niobe #1, but that's not actually her origin story.
No,
From what
no.
I understand, she was actually created in 1990 for a tabletop RPG called Heroes Unlimited,
You
which means
understand
my boy
correct.
Larry was playing Champions back in 1990.
I got Champions books right in front of me.
Was playing Palladium games back in 1990. Like, for real. When I found that out, I was like, yeah, he's my boy.
Well, it wasn't even just Heroes; it was all the Palladium.
It was
right?
all of them, exactly. When
So,
I
like,
found out that this character came out of a game that you were doing, that you created this character kind of as a grounding point for the people you were playing with, I was like, that's fantastic. He turned that character into a successful comic book franchise. That's
well,
great.
I think a lot of us got that story or a version of said story. Like Tom Hutchinson of Big Dog Inc., while he wasn't gaming, he would sit in the back of his business class and draw these really poor drawings of Critter, you know. And you know, many years later, you know, they were partners with Michael Turner's Aspen Comics, right? With Niobe, yeah, I made her when I was 16, drawing her, you know, poorly. And the drawings weren't because I wanted to do a comic. They were just like, I want to have a drawing of my character beside my sheet while we played, you know? And I would either run the games or play the games. Most of the time I was the DM, just like you were, you know what I mean? And so she would either be a player character or she'd be an NPC, depending on, you know, who was running the game that night. You know?
And you could go help Niobe out, or she would be a story hook or something, and you could use her to move the game along. What I mean is, like, if people were to come into a store these days, right, and go to the Antarctic section and see Niobe, right? It's Niobe Origins that's being put out by Antarctic, right?
Well,
and they played with you back then. What kind of crazy mind trip would it be for them to go, yo, I know that character. I played with Larry and I met that character. My character, like, that's what I'm talking about. That kind of awesome moment in time where you've played with people using this character. Now this character is in print.
Well, look, those guys could have had it too, and they didn't want it. You know, I got laughed out of the room by the same cats. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah, man. I told them, you know, and it wasn't all that long ago, maybe 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Sitting around the gaming table, and I'm like, you know, we're doing our hero stuff, and I'm like, we should do a comic. You know, like I said, because everything that we made was original. All the stories were original. They weren't pre-bought. You know, all the characters were original. I'm like, we have our own essential Marvel universe right here. Why are we not doing something with this? You know, like, you know, instead of just like 5 guys around the table, we could really expand this into something, you know. And I got laughed out of the room, you know. And I said, well,
passion, determination, drive, hard work, you know, marijuana habits. I mean, there are all sorts of reasons that people don't do things, but you actually went and did something with it, right? And I'm not trying to like blow smoke up your ass too much, but there is a difference between someone who departs the gaming table and takes that inspiration and goes and makes something with it, like our boy Chris Fisk. And then there's people who enjoy the playing of it and then will one day wind up seeing it on TV or something. Right.
Well, it's sort of bittersweet revenge, you know.
Yeah.
I don't talk to a majority of those guys anymore, you know, and I'm sure when they see Niobe, you know, staring at them in the face in the shop, it's probably a little bit of disdain for them. You know what I mean?
Is that why she's looking down in so many of the covers?
You know, I mean, they could have went on the journey with me, and maybe some of them would have been successful. Who knows? Because Niobe was lucky to even be made, though, right? Like everything seems to be luck on my end, you know. Because when I made #1, I had no idea how to make a comic, right? No idea how to start. So I just wrote a script. I'm like, at the very least, and this is what I'm going to tell all you guys out there, if you're not an artist, at least get your script done first, right? Have something, you know, on your computer, and also print it out, something you can carry around with you if you go to a con or something. Because that's what I did. I printed out my script. I went to the local con here, and I started talking with the artists up and down, you know, the artist alley table. You know what I mean? To see who could actually draw comics, you know, not just like a pretty image, but who can draw sequential art. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And who wanted to maybe be a part of this with me, you know? And I found two guys. I found David Coates, who drew Niobe #1, and I found Andre Boulard, who did the cover, and he also did all the gray tones, shading in the black and white issue, right? And between the three of us, it probably took a year to put it together, you know, and by trial and tribulation sort of thing, we got it done. And the idea was, the way we were going to get paid was we were going to split all the profits that we made from that book and then divide it. Well, we sold $600 worth at the con, so we each got $100 for our efforts. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, what money?
What
money?
Because the Kickstarter didn't give us any extra money. It was barely enough to print the book. You know what I mean?
That was like alphabetizing magic cards for store credit, man.
You know, so the money was supposed to come from selling at shows and, you know, and locally and that sort of stuff. And I wanted to put all the money we made back into the book and reprint more. You know what I mean? Well, they didn't want to reinvest into the book. In fact, both of the guys really wanted to do something different. You know, David Coates got offered ownership of a different comic book. If he drew it, right, he would get 50% ownership, which I never offered these guys because I knew that'd be a mess. So he left Niobe and he went to go do that. Andre just wanted to pursue, you know, doing a career in art in general, not necessarily comic book art, you know, and he's done really well. He does a lot of portraits now. He draws pets for people, makes $200 per pet portrait. And it's insane. You know, they look like he took photographs, black and white. They're that good. So I was left without a team. You know what I mean? So I got Steve Boyu, French-Canadian artist who lives about 5 hours north of here. He wanted to do the book, and it was sort of, you know, I'll pay you what I can, and you know, see what we can do with it. And he was fine with that because he just wanted to draw comics, you know. And we brought on RB White, who was our sort of first pro to do covers for us. You know what I mean? And that's sort of what really sold those early issues was his covers, you know. And thank God for that, because we wouldn't be here. But hopefully, you know, even though I think Steve's art wasn't as good as it is now. And maybe, you know, I was still crafting my art as a writer, and then the horrible lettering. Like, you know, when you look at those early Niobes, they look pretty amateurish. You know what I mean? But that's...
Well, we'll find out. I just bought #1.
Right?
I found one on eBay. It's mine now.
I'll tell you, there's a big difference between the art of #1 and #2. #1's art is actually, you know, and this is not a knock against Steve, but I think it's a little bit better than what we were doing in 2, 3, and 4. David Coates was a really good artist. Just, you know, he was a very introverted guy. I don't think he, you know, liked doing the shows. I don't think he liked the attention. I don't think he liked the long grind it took to draw comics too. You know what I mean? After doing,
it's a slog,
4 issues with the other guy that you know, he got ownership with, that book fell apart and that whole team walked away. You know what I mean? It's a hard grind. This stuff is, you know.
Right. So tell us specifically about Niobe. We're going to get into Savage Syn in a minute because I know that's like why you're here, but we really haven't had a chance to talk about Niobe. And like, there's a lot of Niobe to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, this is only some of the recent Niobe. This is not the original Niobes. They're bagged and boarded. You know, their edges are protected.
That's terrible with
I'm a violent bastard.
Look, I have dropped comics I have no business dropping. You know, things that were not for a real collector saw what the hell I was doing. You know,
just look at this. This is just Origins and Birthright, I believe, and what you call it, the Outbreak and Outbreak, right? This is just that.
So that's
like, this is insane, right, bro.
Well, I mean, that's because it's a lot of variant covers, and you as a backer, you know, you treat people very nice when you back, because a lot of times you're backing some high end stuff. You know, you're buying original art, you're buying like you know, the
Yeah,
complete
right back
collection.
there.
Right.
I got my Outbreak
Yes.
cover. It's so sexy, man. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that thing.
And
And
so
the chromium, was it chromium? The hollow foil cover of that? Is
yeah,
that
they're
what it
foil.
is?
I mean, I don't know if it's chromium, but they're hollow foil.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what the finish is, but the way that it just glistens, her skin has this beautiful bronzing to it. It's fantastic.
Should I leave you
And
for
that cover there that you're
I
showing,
mean, later when the show's over.
Gotcha.
you know, that cover you're showing her, that's actually RB White. So, you know, he's been
Yep.
with us since 2, right? So that man's always got a cover gig with me. You know what I mean? Always. He's going to be on every issue as long as he wants to do them, you know. But as far as Niobe's sort of origin, here, I'll share something with you. We'll pop it up on the screen.
You got to help him with it because I'm
Yes.
somewhere else.
Boom.
There it is.
So what this is the Niobe Lee character profile. It's a 2-page sort of document that you find in the back of Niobe #1. So this sort of gives people the backstory on Niobe. You can read this and then just jump into Niobe and you'll be okay. You know what I mean? You know, so I mean, basic, you know, things here like her name, you know, age, when she was born. Now, like as we get older, you know, we'll probably have to change this number. You know what I mean? I mean, she'd be like 10 years old, like Bart Simpson forever, sort of thing.
Ash Ketchum.
That's sort of the problem with comic books is that these characters sort of never really age, you know. It talks about, you know, her marital thing is, you know, a brief description, but basically she's a pop star who is a genome, basically a mutant that learns that she can teleport, and it sort of changes her life, you know. This sort of talks about how she first discovered her powers during a concert, and she got mobbed and she got freaked out, and she sort of, you know, teleported on the spot in front of everyone. And so the you know, the jig is up. Everyone knows, you know, she's a freak, you know what I mean? And so that changes her life completely. In the origin story, we take this 2-page document and we expand on it, right? And so in the origin story, when she actually does disappear, she gets attacked by someone from the future, blaming Niobe for some cataclysmic, you know, event. And you know, that sort of adds a new element to her origin story. But here, what you're seeing is sort of like the art from Niobe #1. You know what I mean? And so completely sort of different than what we do now. Takes me back to the day, Neff, you know. And this was a story about a kid getting bullied. You know, this was a story actually about teen depression and suicide. So Niobe's, you know, it is a Niobe book, but really the story's about this kid named Lucas, you know, who's a big, huge Niobe fan, and he gets made fun of for it, you know. And I took that story from a real life event that happened to a kid who liked My Little Pony, a boy, right? And he liked, you know, the pony stuff, and he got bullied relentlessly to the point where he tried to commit suicide. You know what I mean? And then comic book artists that I personally know here locally sent them a bunch of stuff because we have a girl here that's, you know, next province over that was doing My Little Pony named Brenda Hickey, and she just sent this kid a ton of stuff. You know what I mean? So I took that story, and I'm, you know, was inspired by that and made Niobe #1. And then on the back, you know, we actually got the suicide prevention lifeline for the US and the kids help phone for Canada. And yeah, so it's quite the read. You know, like when people read our book, you know, they'll see this and they'll think, oh, it's a TNA book, it's another TNA book, until they actually read it. You know what I mean? And then they go, oh, this is completely different than what I thought it was. And that is the sort of reaction that I love, you know? I'm like, good, I'm glad it's different than what you thought it was. Then I'll always ask them, you know, what did you think it was, right? And the usual answer is, oh, we thought it was smut. No, we actually do some stories, you know? You know what I mean? Stories that hopefully will make you think, too.
Eric's having, like, you know, a moment in the chat. He lost 4 friends from the bad thing.
Because he forgot to put the word least.
Oh. Are my 2 favorite traits.
Favorite traits.
Yeah, that's
a
little dark.
I'm like, when I saw the fuck, I'm like, Eric, are you okay? Do we need to send someone to check on you?
Right. No, he's fine. He made a color changing junk man. He's good, man. Well, like, he's nowhere near the edge.
To tell anyone
Oh,
that.
I didn't say anything out loud.
It does something, and you have to figure it out. We did figure it out. We sent the proof to Aaron.
Right. Well, I mean, you didn't have to. Oh, never mind. Anyway, now he's gonna, whatever.
Huh?
So I've heard
Sentences. They're
that
wonderful things.
for you, characters aren't about their powers, and that's not what makes the character. It's their vulnerability. What kind of poetic irony inspired you to create a character whose power is their weakness?
Well, you gotta have a weakness for everyone, right?
Yeah, you have to,
Superman's
but
got
like
kryptonite.
you made the power the weakness.
Well, that was all done during the RPG days, So if you play like a game like Champions, like you had mentioned, or you play a game like GURPS, and you can make your own powers in these games, some of the cost-cutting measures to pay for these powers with your points is you got to give these powers some setbacks, some drawbacks to get the points back to make your character the way you want it to.
Right.
So one of Niobe's drawbacks back in the day, when she existed on a champion sheet in GURPS, was that her powers were actually harmful to her. Like the more that she done it, there's more of a chance that she can go into a seizure, or worse. You know what I mean? And that power sort of evolved through the iterations of the character during RPG days, and it's changed here and there slightly. But for the comic book version, it will tire her out, sort of like Nightcrawler. If Nightcrawler teleports too much, he's going to be puckered out. Same thing with her. But on top of that, she learns that her body structurally is just not made for such stress that it takes to do this, right? And so she's warned by physicians that that study the genome. This isn't a good thing. You might want to watch and pick and choose your battles, which she doesn't really do yet. She's still a little bit reckless,
I did have a character one time. I think it was for the Mutants and Masterminds system.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things they have a similar situation where like you have drawbacks for your character.
Right.
And one of the things that you can have is like a psychological disorder, right? Like I think World of Darkness calls them derangements, right?
Yes.
Right.
And they impose specific penalties on you when you're suffering from them. So I had Kid Misery, and his power was the amplification of his depression. So when he would get depressed, he would impose those negative modifiers on people around him and increase them. But the problem was, of course, he's suffering from similar negative modifiers, and frequently he would just get depressed and leave. Like the team battle at the very important moment, he would just be like suffering from ennui and leave. It was a fun character. I don't know if it would make a good comic book.
You never know till you try.
Yeah, right. I mean, it might be funny. It might be
I like the
good
name
one-off,
Kid
right?
Misery. I think that's got a ring to it,
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, as much as I'd like to keep talking about Niobe, right? It's not actually why you're here. You're here to talk about Savage Syn. Now, the way Niobe,
I have no problem talking Niobe.
I mean, I could keep talking Niobe forever, but I kind of want to show the campaign because
Right?
there's some art on Savage Syn that's just a little smoking. You know what I mean? Like that campaign looks so good. But with Niobe, the comic looks like a TNA book, right? It looks like a bad girl, naughty pinup girl book. But like you just said, there's a lot more to it than that. Once you get into Niobe, there's actual substance to it. There's a story, but there's also kind of like a purpose, at least to the original issue, it sounds like. Have you done something similar with Savage Syn? What separates it from all the other like titty fare that's out there?
All right. Well, I mean, the big difference between the two is Niobe, I really take on everything they say you shouldn't do in comics. I actually do. No religion, no drama, no politics. No, they're all in my comic. They're just not a biased opinion, right? So when
that's the key right there. You can have all those things, but it needs to be a broad view.
Right.
You can't lean heavily into one thing and then force that perspective onto the reader or lecture them from that perspective.
So with
politics are great. They should engender conversation. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Well, no, it's all right, man. I was just going to explain how, right? Like, so like in Niobe #1, we did the suicide and depression, which was a big, talking point at that time and still is. in Birthright, we tackled abortion. You know what I mean? Tell me who's got the balls to do that, you know? And then you cut it in a way that no one wins, right? So we had Niobe, who actually, you know, appears as pro-choice. And then we had Ariel, who represented the Vatican, that appeared as pro-life. And those two went at it, you know, and because of their egos and their unwillingness to, you know, see the other side, the girl that they were trying to protect that was actually pregnant, considered the abortion, well, her and the baby die because Niobe and Ariel.
It sucks, bro.
Spoiler alert, guys.
Right.
And then in Niobe Outbreak, I'm taking on what we lived through in the last 2 years of COVID, man. You know what I mean? In a different way. It's a different virus and it works differently. But, you know, essentially masking and mandates and, you know, social distancing and all these things, the paranoia, you know, that we had to sort of live through from 2020 up until recent time, you know, are going to be things that are going to be, you know, laden throughout the Niobe Outbreak miniseries.
Right. But Savage Syn
is just a fantasy romp. You know what I mean?
Okay. So
That's
it is
different.
more like escapist, fun, and, you know, bare skin, badass chick killing orcs and stuff like
brother.
that. All right. Do you have the campaign you want to bring it up? That'd be great.
Savage Syn is my D&D world come to life.
Nice. So tell us about the protagonist, antagonists, the central conflict, the stakes. Tell us about the setting. Sell us on this book.
Well, it's a 3-issue miniseries to start with. And, you know, if that does well, then we'll make more one-shots and miniseries. But her name is Sindara. She's a tribal warrior. And she lives on a tropical island, small island, that gets overran by these fishmen, which I call muck dwellers for a slang term. They're like Murlocs from Warcraft or Shahagin from D&D. You know what I mean? And so this scourge takes place where they are just like an infestation all over this island, killing the different tribesmen. And at one point, though, there is a pirate ship that was nearby that encounters a storm. The boat gets wrecked on a bunch of rocks. The first mate is thrown overboard. He is rescued and brought to the beach. And so he's on this tropical island during this scourge, you know, and Sindara and her tribesmen find him being attacked by these muck dwellers, and she protects him. You know what I mean? That's sort of the, you know, where we are with the first issue. That cover right there is done by John Stintsman of Image Comics fame. You know, he worked on Evangeline, Lady Pendragon, Scarlet Crush. We brought this man out of comic book retirement. You know,
it's a good cover.
So that, you know, the work was someone whose comics I was reading as a kid. You know, someone who got to work firsthand with one of the Image founders. Pretty damn cool. You know what I mean? That's RB White's cover right there. Really nice cover. He's always doing a bang up job. And the last cover that you'll see, cover F, is going to be by CB Zane and a nice woman named Gwendolyn who does the colors here. You know,
that's a great cover. I love the 3-point perspective on that.
Yeah, it's completely different than sort of you know, what everyone else was doing, right? I told them a few things. You know, I said, you know, I want a couple pinup like covers, but I also want a couple of covers that sort of relate to the story, because I think that's lacking in comics, you know. So that's why, you know, some of those covers are the way they are. And then we see the pages. So, you know, what you get on cover A is what you get on the inside of the book. So cover A is drawn by Gerardo Garcia, and he's known for his interior works with Zenoscope Comics. And now he's, you know, working with us. And colors by a good man named Federico, whose last name I can't pronounce.
And you're not going to try, because
not even going to try.
Right.
We call him Fed, you know.
Right. So who did the character design? Who's responsible for the turnarounds? Like, I'm sure you had your idea of what you wanted it to look like.
Well, I drew it first.
Who came up with the bone thong?
Me.
Okay. All right.
No, I drew her first, and that's what I do with most of my characters, you know, because I do have a
so I'm a worse artist. Clearly, I am a worse artist than you are.
Yeah, I can draw them to a point, and then what I do is I hand them off to a real artist, and they'll take my design and make it happen. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
They may change it a little bit, elaborate a little bit, but you know, you know, I can draw enough. They get the idea of what I'm looking for, you know. And so Fern Cord, who does Mary Machine Gun, he was the guy that I gave the art to, and he sort of redrew her. And I was like, okay, perfect. This is it. Let's go. You know what I mean? You stretch goals. So we're knocking on the door to 10,000. Now you're gonna look at the campaign and go, it's not even at 7. No, it is, because this is in Canadian dollars. We're
Canadian,
doing it, right?
Yeah.
Duck bucks, people.
Duck bucks. So we're knocking on the
Stretch goals
door
are
of 10,000 for Duck Bucks, which will unlock this great chibi sticker by our very own Giselle, the BC. It's like this great sort of undiscovered talent, that we're really starting to put him through the paces and utilize. People love these stickers so much that he got contacted by like 2 or 3 other creators for work already. Pixel
Yeah,
Trader.
I'm digging
That's
them.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, Pixel Trader contacted him for stuff for the little mermaid. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So love giving you guys a shot and getting them out there a little bit, on top of bringing in the professionals. It's a nice bookmark by the Joel Souza cover. Then we have the trading card from our good friend Tommy, who brings out this sort of like 90s, late 80s anime style to it.
Mo's not here, so we can talk about that.
Right? And if we get to 20,000 Canadian, and it's a possibility, we'll see what happens. If we have a really good 2 weeks, maybe we can get there. If we do, then we'll unlock something really cool. That will be worth it, But we have to, we'll have to get there. If we get to 15,000 in the next little while, then I'll announce what that will be. But for now, it's still going to remain a mystery.
I mean, that's smart. You got to give people something that they want to find out, so they keep checking back on the campaign, see if they can, see if it's been unlocked yet, and sate their curiosity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as you're scrolling through, there's a couple different options for covers. You can have them with the trade dress. You can have them without. John Stinsman cover right there. That one, that's gonna be that's gonna get a how you were looking at the RB white and you love the foil. That's getting foiled. There's gonna be a foiled version of that.
Nice.
I think
that's the $90 tier. Savage Syn #1 John Stinsman bundle. That's like the standard plus the virgin plus the foil.
Right, but you can also just buy the virgin on its own if that's what someone wants. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like you can get
so
everything
that's like as an add-on you have available.
No, I mean it should be its own tier too.
Okay.
Basically, there's any sort of order that you want these books, it's possible. If you do the combos, it's a little cheaper. You save a couple of bucks, but you don't have to. You know what I mean? Just want to order the virgin separately or the foil separately, you're able to do that. But if you want to get a deal, say like the Fatal 4-Way, which is all the covers we've done without the trade dress, you can get all 4 of those. Boom, boom. Savage Syn the Blank, that's a great add-on too. Guys who love going to conventions and drawing, like Pete Vask on my channel, he loves the shit out of these. You know what I mean? I have like 2 short boxes full of blank covers that I just would bring to conventions that artists have drawn on. Everyone that's from cool. Like no one you ever heard of in Artist Alley to like Jamie Tyndall. You know what I mean?
Nice.
She's a huge Jamie Tyndall fan.
Well, then you're gonna love the cover I'm gonna show you in a little bit.
Big Jamie Tyndall fan.
I have a whole bunch.
Enormous. She likes Jamie Tyndall more than she likes me.
And then as always, RB White, wants to offer up his art for sale. So he'll give me a price. We add on a couple extra dollars, and then we put them up. So there you have like sort of like the sketch version of the cover, and then you have like sort of the more refined inked version, the final piece. I don't know if those have been bid on yet or not. I haven't checked, so they might still be around.
They're still available. I'm looking at them right now.
Because Neff is busy.
And you know what the art's like, because you gotten his art before, so you know the size and how it comes.
Oh, it's clean. It is clean. It's good stuff.
And the add-ons, like I said, you can just add on anything you want in any order. It's all fine. And then if you never read Niobe, you can add on Niobe books. There isn't like all the variant covers, but all the basics are there. Birthright cover A, Birthright 2 cover A. We got Outbreak on there. We got Origins on there. That's a nice McFarlane homage right there. Spider-Man #1 cover swipe. Niobe #1, the 3rd printing is there. The trade paperback is there. So it's a good way, for people if they want to sort of jump on, they never seen Niobe. You back Savage Syn, you pick up some Niobe, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
Villain variant there by Fern Corda, Mary Machine Gun. I have like 10 of these beside me, so I figure I'd throw them up. And then the rest of the campaign, there is just information, on the various creators and artists who worked on the book. Then there's information on how we ship and how digital fulfillment works, and all the good stuff.
Look at that foil, man. That foil's gorgeous.
Yeah, Neff is
Shopping.
busy
Shopping.
shopping.
Leave me alone.
Well, I'll tell you,
It's that point of the show. It's that point of the
the
show.
comic books are really good quality. We print with Comics Wellspring, and they always do a fantastic job. So.
What's up, Wolfsbane? We got Aaron Wolfsbane up in the chat.
Yeah, we haven't said
Hello.
hi to anyone.
We also got Riser Man, Neo Star Productions.
I mean, we've been chatting.
I think we said hi to Shanos. I mean, I've been saying hi to people and
we've
talking
been
to them
talking
in the chat.
Yeah,
not
so
like
he said that cover B reminds him of Bruce Timm. It absolutely does.
Yes.
I mean, it's not Bruce Timm. It's Joel Souza, but he does have that vibe. Like, if you like that Justice League, Batman animated style, then you're going to love Joel Souza's artwork. 100%.
Yeah.
That's
I like cover
when it's
C
on the
too.
bookmark.
Yeah, there's a
Cover
lot of
F and
variety.
cover
here.
C are my favorites right now, I think.
There you go.
Yeah, cover
Well,
C is
that's it.
Elsie
Now I'm just
Faritas. Cover D is John Stinsman. E is RB White. F is CB Zane. A is Eduardo, and B is Joel Souza. So there's 6 covers and then the blank.
Right.
Unlike Niobe, where I did like at one point 14 variant covers, dude. It was overkill.
Yeah, but I had to get them all. You were doing it. So you were doing it, so I had to get it.
So for this campaign, I cut that down considerable amount.
Right. Only 8 or 9, right?
6.
Oh, okay.
You just counted.
Well, I mean, there's the virgins.
Okay.
so-
Okay, well, if we're gonna count that, then Niobe had a lot more than 14.
Yeah, right.
But here's the thing, though. They sell. It's amazing how they sell. The thing, people, like, one of the things that people complain about is, like, there's all these variants. There's too many variants, and it's killing the comic book market. I disagree. I think it helps the comic book market, and I'll tell you why. Because when you go to a campaign and you have options, say you don't like this cover that's right in front of you, but you scroll down and you go, oh, I like this one, and you buy that, right? So, it's like, picking a chocolate bar. When you go to the store, you have lots of variety and you get what you want, so having a variety of different covers, where, 2 or 3 covers may not be someone's cup of tea. They get down the, cover 4 and they go, oh shit, I want that one.
There's another great one too. You do have a lot of really good
That's my
You
favorite
always
one right
do.
there.
Yeah.
That is my favorite one.
You always have really great covers on your campaigns.
Well, that comes with investing back into the books, right? So I would say this to new creators too. If you can afford to get a guy or two that has a name in the industry, even though it might cost you a little bit more than, say, the unknown people you might work with, do it, because that artist is going to bring their people over to you. You know what I mean? So when I get to work with we've mentioned his name, Jamie Tyndall, right, as one of the big dogs that we get to deal with. He comes with a built-in fan base already,
Yeah.
and then they come over to Niobe to buy this ultra rare low print cover from Kickstarter that he's done. You know what I mean? And so even though they're coming over for him, hopefully they'll read the book and then they'll come back for more,
Right.
And so it's an investment that pays off,
Right. I agree with that. I mean, you have to reinvest in your brand. You have to reinvest in your work,
Oh yeah.
because if you're not going to, who is, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's see here.
Agreed. Yeah, Neff is still.
Do you want to see it, Pigtails? You want
Yes, I do. I was gonna say, I'm like, when are you gonna show it? I'm dying. To see
It's
it.
been out, like, circulating around, but I kind of haven't posted a lot lately because I want to sort of like let people forget about it for a little bit, right?
Mhm.
And then when it's campaign time, then really,
And I'm like, whoa.
boom,
blows
here it
everybody
is.
away.
But I'm gonna bring it up for you.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, it's
So
beautiful.
good.
Yeah. Oh, she got a little doll.
Right?
She's got her own merch. Dude, make the doll.
Yes. Oh, you have to. I would
Make
so buy
the
it.
no, I'm
Oh
dead
my
ass
God,
serious.
no, I
Make
need
the
that.
doll.
Like, I really need that. You have no idea.
We can put you in touch with some of our plushie makers.
Please
I
do.
swear to
'Cause I
God,
have
make
no
the
idea
doll.
where to go for this, right? I mean, I
No,
think
we
it's a great
got you.
idea.
We got you, bro. One of the big things Aerith will tell you about it is you have to have like properly treated materials, so they have to be like hypoallergenic and able to be sold in the U.S. That's
flame
one of the things
retardant,
that can.
not hypoallergenic.
What's that?
I think it's flame retardant, not
I thought it was like
hypoallergenic.
doesn't have asbestos in it, but
I
I
mean,
guess
that's
it's flame
fair,
retardant.
too. I don't know.
I'm just flame retardant.
Yeah, I mean, you're just retardant.
yeah.
So.
So I think you're good on the stretch goal, my friend.
Woohoo!
I think if
Appreciate
you
that.
refresh, I think we got that 10K stretch goal. So awesome new sticker for everybody. Might take a minute to refresh, but I'm looking at it on my screen. And yeah, that is awesome. We're on our way to the next one. Hopefully we'll unlock the mystery stretch goal eventually. But I would love to see Savage Syn hit some really high numbers because, you know, you just keep pulling in more and more totals, right? Like you keep growing that brand, growing the audience, getting more attention on your books. And that's kind of how you do it. You got to do it the grassroots way, right? You got to like boots on the pavement, push your stuff. So more power to you, my dude. Will there be a Savage Syn Indiegogo campaign?
Of course. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, there usually is. Usually run like the secondary on Indiegogo for people who don't want to back on Kickstarter, but there's been some shenanigans going on Indiegogo. So I don't know how much longer this whole like division between the two platforms is going to last because people getting done dirty on Indiegogo. They might just
I'll tell you
over to
this. I
Kickstarter. Who
had
knows?
Van Skyver on my show a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't planned. He was just in the chat, and I threw him the link, and he came on, right? And I asked him about that. You know, I said, you know, years ago you said that Kickstarter was sort of off limits for members of CG. I said, but now
actually it was John that said that. Ethan was kind of like, yeah, all right, they did the dirty to Zach. John is still very adamantly anti.
Right. But you know, when the whole John De La Rose, Liam Gray thing went down and John was removed from Indiegogo, he had no choice but to go to Kickstarter.
Go to Kickstarter, right? Yep.
And you know, he's Comicsgate to the core, and he was allowed to run on there. So I asked Ethan, I said, does that mean that you've changed your stance on Kickstarter? And he said, yes. You know, he said, yeah. Kickstarter.
He said the embargo is over. I actually heard a little bird whisper that he might be bringing a Cyber Frog fifth chance campaign, little small campaign, kind of under the radar to Kickstarter just to test the waters. But he's been focusing on like actually fulfilling the campaigns that he needs to fulfill first before running other campaigns on new platforms. That was some of the advice that he got of like, what the fuck? Just do the shit that you already have to do before you go make even bigger waves. So, you know,
well, I just refreshed and we hit the 10,000 Canadian mark.
That's
so
it.
Thank
right
you,
there.
brother. And I'm going to actually, you know, take a screenshot of that number before someone backs out.
No, I got you, bro. I got you. You're good.
You know what I mean?
And that means that if I could scroll without giving everyone vertigo.
Yeah, we have unlocked Giselle's chibi card.
Oh, I went past it.
Yeah,
I failed.
Did it again.
Stop. It's a hilarious card. I always make my voices for it. Is it down?
No, it's up.
Okay, I give up.
This is why this is not your job. Usually I'm better at this.
Well, usually, yeah.
A little, I don't know.
Zipping past my favorite cover there.
There she is.
There she is. Unlocked.
So I saw that and I thought of Aerith.
I kill you. I rip your limbs off and feed
them. Yeah, with
family.
the face of the like, you know, the I murder you. I thought of the actual Aerith comic, like an Aerith.
I've never seen anyone look so mad but so adorable at the same time.
Exactly.
Oh, you've never seen me mad then. Right?
Yeah, she's cute and scary.
Rip my limbs
I don't know how that works.
It's like a little dog barking that you don't take seriously, you know, like.
Yes.
And then she stabs you, and
and then you take
brother,
seriously after that.
Next time, next time, and now I have the scars to prove it.
Neil Star says, "Congratulations."
Thank you, brother. Thank you. You know, Neil Star is a good cat. He's always in the chats. You know, he's been around
awesome.
For years, John, for years. So yeah, man, it's good. You know, it was a risk doing this campaign because it's not Niobe; it's a brand new thing.
Right. I was actually going to ask you. You just put out the trade, right? You have Birthright, you have Origins. You just did Outbreak. You put out the trade, which collected Birthright and Origins. It's all Niobe. Why spontaneously suddenly pivot to do a new series? I'm sorry, I was supposed to ask you that earlier. I got distracted.
You know, I'll tell you. I just had a story in my head that I wanted to do. I had joked around, yeah, maybe one day I'll do my D&D stuff as a comic, since I did my hero stuff as a comic. But what happened was, to do these extra things always costs extra money, right?
Yeah.
Just to do a brand new comic book, well, that's a $5,000, $6,000 investment, easy,
At
right?
least, yeah.
But because Outbreak had done so well, I had the extra funds for once to be able to go, yeah, I can probably do this, But, it's on the premise that hopefully it makes its money back. And so far, it looks like that's the case. So
Awesome.
And so Savage Syn gets to stay alive. At 12,000 Canadian, that pays me back. That pays for the printing and shipping, and it pays me back the money I put into it. You know what I mean? And so anything above 12,000 is icing on the cake.
Well, just 2 more, then you're breaking even and making the next one, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
I mean,
you're
we'll
close, man,
probably
you're close.
we'll probably break even for sure, and we'll probably, because we got 15 days left, and we're already at the 10,000 mark now. Suffice it to say, I think it's going to be okay. And we all know, like, if you do Kickstarters, the last 2 or 3 days are just as important
Huge. They're
as
huge.
as your first few days. That's when the last minute backers jump on and that sort of stuff, and you'll see.
And hopefully no one jumps off.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky so far with this. I think I had a couple people that sort of dropped off, where Niobe was like every day was like playing with my emotions.
Yeah, I know. That's the one thing
Like,
about
you guys got
Kickstarter. It's like,
campaigns,
hey,
how the drill is.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Like, you're nervous. You get an email and you're like, is this going to be a good email or a bad email?
I remember when we got our first refund.
And I freaked out. I'm like, oh no, why?
I was like, what did I do wrong? It's like,
The other
how
thing
did I
I've
upset
gotten-
people?
The other thing I've gotten into is grading books. So, for instance,
Larry.
you're going to be seeing these on the next campaign. This is
nice.
CGC Niobe Origin,
Yeah.
our Antarctic press one. And I know there's a glare and a light and stuff, but I got a bunch of these done. I'm going to be sending in a bunch more. This one only came out as a 9.4, but I got some really nice graded books up on the go. You know what I'm saying?
Shane says, I cannot resist backing savage barbarian type female warriors against monsters, and I'm in.
Right?
Awesome.
She's got a nickname. A lot of people call her Savage Booty. I'm like, did I miss my calling? Should I call the book Savage Booty? Let's check this one out from Keith Garvey, 9.8.
Make him big.
Nice.
Make him big.
Sorry. There you go. Nice.
Beautiful CGC book. So, like, you get a dealer account with CGC, and so you get a discount when you send in books, and they generally work on them a little faster because you're a creator,
Oh, cool. I didn't realize that.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
Why CGC grade things?
Because it triples the value.
But why? Why would anything like, I don't know, a magazine-sized, oversized first edition of a comic books that's going to become a series and franchise now, why would that ever be worth anything?
You're preserving the book, right? So let's say you have Amazing Fantasy 15, and you want to make sure, if you drop it like Neff drop books, that you don't ding it up, right? So what do? You get it graded and you put it in a hard plexiglass plastic. You know what I mean? And they're also wrapped in Mylar when that's done. So those books are preserved, and they're preserved for a long time. The second reason why you would, there's probably like 3 reasons. The second reason why you would grade is they just look nice, on display, But the third reason is if you ever intend to sell the book. So say you got a hot money book and you want to make sure that that you get top dollar for it. If you grade it, the buyer then knows that they're getting a book at a guaranteed grade. You know what I mean? It's not just your subjective opinion.
Right.
Now you have professionals
It's
look
currency.
at it, grade it, and so they know exactly what they're getting and what they're buying.
So as a person, you grade your books. Is that more a matter of pride, or are you seeing a huge jump in value in the aftermarket? And do you think that this applies to things that are more, like, other than comics? What about like graphic novels and stuff like that? I've seen like larger CGC graded things.
Yeah,
any collectible?
I think with floppies, that's where it sort of shines primarily.
Right.
It's, you know, when you talk, like you mentioned Golden Age and Silver Age books, you know, those would be the types of books you would send in the CGC. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but UCGC your stuff.
Right. But the other thing
This way it
you
can
see
blend
is
in.
hot variant covers. You know, you got, like, for instance, like this like this isn't one of my books. This is just one of the books I sent in. But this was a money book, and it's triple its money now. This beautiful J. Scott Campbell book I sent in of Gomorrah, right? On
Nice.
eBay, that's
That is
probably a
beautiful.
$200 book. You know what I mean? Give or take.
Right.
Grading it, it might be now a $400 or $500 book, depending. You know what I mean?
And that just goes
That's
up over
awesome.
time, regardless. Like,
Well, this was a 1 out of 50. So the older this one gets, the harder it is to sort of track down. You know what I mean?
right.
So I mean, yeah. I mean, that's why you would do it.
That's
The reason
awesome.
why I grade my books is they sell well. You know, I can put up graded books on my next Kickstarter, and they're going to go like that. I put them up on eBay, they go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can't grade everything. Like, I only grade, like, you know, like say that I'll grade Jamie Tyndall, I'll grade the Paul Green covers, I'll grade the Keith Garvey covers. You know, I'm going to grade Ben Dunn's cover that he did for me. That's going to be in the next batch. You know what I mean? Founder of Antarctic Press, shout out, brother. You know, Atrocity Press, Max DeVille.
Max, what is up?
My brother in arms, the co-host with the most. You know, great things coming from Max DeVille, man. You know, he's already on Mary Machine Gun #4, Human Hunters, Ninja Bimbos from Deep Space. Like, if I ever had a partner in crime in comic books, that's probably the guy right there. You know, we've done so much together now and climbed so far in such a short amount of time. Like, we're both being published by Antarctic Press. Mary Machine Gun will be in the next Diamond solicitation for July.
That's awesome.
You'll be able to buy that as a mini series at your local comic shop. Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, for real, dude. That's like a big step.
Very, very cool. Congrats.
You know, we gotten very lucky on our show where we get to, you know, hang out with the founder, Ben Dunn. He's a, you know, a regular part of our show now. And because of that relationship that we forged, you know, some cool things are happening, not just for us, but for him as well, you know. And he's created the Superverse, which Max is going to have the lead issue in. So, you know, great things coming from us over on my side of the aisle, and Antarctic Press. You know, and think about it. Antarctic Press also publishes Rags. They publish Punchline from Matt Weldon. They publish Common America from Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini. Now they got Niobe. Now they got Mary Machine Gun. You know, they also
they're starting to stack their stable, man, for real.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. That's very exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty. I never dreamed any of this possible. Listen, when you guys looked at that Niobe #1, if that was the only thing that I ever released, I'd be happy. Right? Okay. I made a comic book. That was sort of like the dream. Can I just do it? You know, and we did it. Right? And if it's all stopped there, I'd be content. But it hasn't, and we're going to see how far this goes. Right? But even if it's all to stop now, you know, I lived a variety of dreams. I got to work with guys whose work I read as a kid. I got to be published and put in Diamond. You know, I just accomplished a lot in a short amount of time. And, you know,
which is why I got to say you can't stop now. Talk about stopping now. You just got started. You know what I mean? Like this is it now. Now you're getting to work. You're getting out there. You're getting the circulation that you need. I mean, it's cool to look back and see the humble origins, the early beginnings of LP, like how you built it from a little nothing into a something, and then you got into Antarctic. But now is when the work really begins, because getting into the stores. Getting into the stores is how you change the game.
Yeah, I'm going to show you something else really cool. Here's a sneak peek for you guys, man.
Awesome.
All right. No, I'm going to share screen it.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah.
Look at this.
Yes.
Dude, it's gorgeous.
This is so cool.
It's Psylocke and Phoenix and Majik.
Like
Majik all done like Niobe.
Poster or
so what this is going to be the Niobe limited edition Kickstarter exclusive cosplay edition cover set. So we're going to put brand new covers on Outbreak and Origins as like a limited time collector's edition sort of thing, you know, special reprints of these books, but they're going to have these covers. So, you know, Birthright's going to have,
and they're interconnecting, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
I hate you.
Well, that's why I wasn't sure if they were. If
it's
they
gonna
were
make me buy the books again.
Yo, can Can you make a stretch goal like a print of this?
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
I think
full-
that's going to have to be
Yeah.
given. Like, people have already asked me if this was going to be a poster and stuff. Yeah, I'm probably going to do that.
Yeah,
I'm
Sweet.
definitely going to make it a personal poster from my room. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so good.
See, like
Yeah, that's
this
what I meant,
is
like
almost
that.
the perfect size.
Hold
Yeah.
on, I don't think anyone can see because we're there.
This is a Daniel Warren Johnson fold out that it's not folded.
Right.
That
The
he
only
signed.
problem
And there's like
with
a special is shipping. That's the only problem.
Well, yeah, it's like, we gotta, if I do like an 11x17 print, that won't fit in a Gemini mailer. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So now I have to like
Yeah,
get
no,
a
it was like
box.
a big flat.
It was a
box
weird
that
flat box that they did,
sent
which
it to
means,
us.
and that's the eternal problem is
Right?
shipping.
It's how do you figure out how to
shipping
ship
this
it?
stuff is the eternal issue with
Right.
being a self-publisher.
I mean,
is
when
figuring out how
RBY
to
ships out his art, he'll put it in a tube, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't send them flat. I wish he did, but they come in a tube, and that's why you got yours in a tube. I don't want to put
which,
things in a tube if I can
it's just
avoid
nice
it.
in the frame. Though.
Yeah, no,
it
it's
flattens
fine.
out
It flattened out
perfectly.
nicely.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad that it did, because that's how he sends them to me, right? And so I get it. It's easier to ship things that way, but I wish things would come flat. I'm with like if I can put these in boxes, I would. If I do posters, and I'm talking like 24 by 36 size, like real poster that you would buy at the store, is what I kind of want to do with this. But I got to see how expensive that's going to be. You know what I mean?
Do it black light.
Yeah, that'd be cool, eh?
Yeah, there are plenty of people that are doing black light right now. There's it's a little treatment. It's actually really affordable, inexpensive to do black light posters. Dark Gift been doing black light tapestries. You know what I mean? Like wall hangings, and they're cloth, so they fit in mailers even easier because you don't have to worry about folds. I want a poster too, but yeah, Phoenix is my girl, so that's like my favorite right there.
Yeah,
but Majik has a really Majik's got that like effect. I could see that glow. I could see that glow right there.
So these are all done by Greg Bo Watson, who's known for his work with like Grimm Fairy Tales, Zenoscope Comics, that type of stuff. Colors by the same person. So all these are done by the same person. They are a connecting set. And with the Phoenix, we're actually going to make that a foil cover as well.
Foil.
So it's going to be a foil version of that, right? It's going to look
you have the cover game down.
Yeah.
You
very,
get
very
it,
good
man.
at
You
it.
really do. Very good at covers.
And this won't be the end. We'll do other cosplay covers probably, months down the road. And probably the next time I do them, she'll be dressed up as video game characters. So you might see Niobe as
Chun-Li.
Yeah, or Diva from Overwatch, or stuff
I could
like
see,
that.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be fantastic.
So every now and then we're going to do these mini campaigns, where I'll take some books, we'll put a new coat of paint on the cover, and here we go. If you guys want them, they're out there, and that's just a way. It's kind of cool because I just like it. B, though, it gives us a little extra money to put back into the pot to make the new stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these will look great in a CGC case. Trust me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
So that's another thing that campaign is coming up right after Savage Syn. And then after that cosplay campaign is done, we're going to be launching Niobe Outbreak #2, which we've already started pages on. So everything is all in the works now.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys should make sure you follow Larry
on social
Twitter,
media. Yeah, keep up with what's going on.
So you don't miss out.
Niobe Comics.
Lots of awesome stuff.
Glad you're back. I'm glad things are going well. Everything's positive. The good vibes make me feel good.
Yeah.
Makes everyone's doing comics, having a good time, being productive, successful, making money,
excited about their stuff,
books.
making good stuff. I love
that's
it.
what I'm in it for, man.
Yeah.
That's everybody being productive.
Well, I don't know what I'd be doing for the last 8 years if it wasn't for
money right now.
Oh yeah, Chun-Li Niobe's going to be epic, dude. Don't you worry about that.
With the little meatballs, it's going to be fantastic. I already see it. Like it's a no-brainer, easy go-to, right? Yeah. That's actually like another thing that people do is like the fan art.
Yeah.
You should consider like doing some fan art stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, as stretch goals for the cosplay campaign, Giselle, who did that chibi sticker that you just helped unlock, sir, he's doing stickers for the cosplay campaign, and those stickers are Niobe chibis as her cosplaying as Shadowcat and 80s Dazzler.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
So it's going to be a cool campaign. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun campaign. I'm looking forward to getting there, My year is going to be a busy year, but it's a busy in all the best ways possible. I'm looking at maybe doing this full time soon.
That'd be awesome.
That would be very awesome. And now that he's with Antarctic,
yeah,
he can afford to have more, like if he's got the distribution, he can afford to put more work into creating comics.
She's definitely got the thickness for a Chun-Li cosplay.
Down with the thickness, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Thick
mean?
thighs save lives.
we are fans over here.
All right, that's probably gonna be it, man. I mean, the final word is back Savage Syn, right?
Yeah,
like get up. That $10,000 stretch goal gets you that adorable, scary sticker, which we're all looking forward to. That is it, though. Oh, all thanks to you putting it on the campaign. Really. I mean, just I flashed my little a little bit. That's all.
Next, we got to work on getting this dude.
Yeah, he's great.
Let's go push it.
It's a little monster.
Yeah,
I would love to see a little bit of like a crossover between Ariel, the Little Mermaid, and Savage Syn's fish people. You know what I mean?
The great thing about the Superverse that Ben Dunn's created is that if Pixel want to be a part of that, that idea yours could be a reality. That's sort of what the Superverse is about. Awesome. Like me and Ben Dunn are working on a project ourselves. So I'm doing a Niobe Penguina crossover story, and I'm gonna have the Savage Syn team put that together. And he's doing his own Niobe Penguina story, which he's writing and drawing himself. And so there's going to be 2 crossover books and 2 different campaigns coming out. And then those books, will likely be printed by Antarctic Press and circulating in comic shops.
Right.
Very, very cool. Yeah, that would be a fun crossover.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Ben's already started to work on his. I already started to work on my script. The thing that I don't have is time.
Right? It's always the thing.
Definitely, always a thing. You gotta maintain focus on your schedule, and there's never enough time in the day. We know all about that. And speaking of time, we've been going an hour and a half. I think this is the longest we've gone, like all year.
While.
Yeah, all year.
Well, yeah,
clearly all year.
Yeah.
It's only March, isn't it? Oh my god.
I'm gonna be going even longer. In about 30 minutes. If anyone wants to jump over to Niobe Comic on YouTube, that's where you can find me. That and Twitter and stuff. I mean, in Niobe Comic, you'll find me. But
did you do the Savage Syn playthrough of all of D3 yet, or D4?
I'll be doing that tonight.
Okay, cool.
So yeah,
what the rundown. You play on Steam?
No, BattleNet. Like that's where it's a Blizzard game, right? Yep. So the deal tonight is in about 30 minutes when I leave here, we are going to go live for a comic book stream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about a variety of things and Niobe and Savage Syn updates, obviously. So anyone out there, you want to drop by, you haven't got enough of your comic book fix in yet tonight, come on over and check us out. And then after that, it's just going to be late night gaming, probably me and Max DeVille diving back into the world of Diablo 4 while the beta weekend's still open.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, I might make sure I put the bell on to know when you go live, and then I'll tweet it out. I might stop by if once
brother, come on the show sometime. Like I
know. I blew it the other night. You sent me the link and everything, and then I had a freaking phone call.
I blame Odin.
And when it wasn't Odin, it was Chimera. And then when it was done, I was like, well, shit, that's been like 40 minutes. Now I feel like a jackass.
Oh, it's all good, man. No one's obligated to come on. But I mean, like, if you're friendly to the show and we got open spaces, then we have no problem. Like, hey, you want to come on and talk for a bit? Like we talked to everyone from Eric Larson to Ethan Van Sciver and everyone in between. So
and that's how I like it. That's how I like it. I like it when people are they have open doors and willing to have conversations.
Yeah, I don't really
That said, we gotta go. We gotta end the show. That is it for us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Click the like button if you enjoyed the content. Click the subscribe button if you want to see more content like this, and click the bell if you want to know when we go live next.
And tune into the frequency.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
What's happening? I don't know what happened there.
Click the outro. This is the